to Awaken and Truth Make Up Your Power podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, with my sidekick ladies, Tina and Stephanie, here with you today. Stephanie will be out in the woods for the remainder of the summer. So if you are watching, you might see some glitches, but she is still joining us from where she's at. And I might be glitchy at times too. So maybe listening might be even better this for the summertime. Today we're talking about hypervigilance versus intuition. um, I woke up this morning feeling pretty heavy and tired. If we're going to do like a little energy overcast real quick, and then into uh, taking no shit kind of situation. So it's kind of like, I don't know if this is a collective energy or what, but it's kind of one of those things that like checking things at the door, kind of like that's just kind of where I'm at. So I'm feeling a little sassy this morning. But yeah, so we're talking about hypervigilance versus intuition today and kind of like what that looks like. Like, are we mistaking anxiety for intuition? Are we living in fear based spirituality? Where we're thinking, it's doomsday and like everything's turning to shit or what have you. And a lot of times being mindful that if things seem like they're kind of hitting rock bottom, that we're kind of given an opportunity to have things get better. Because once we're at the bottom, you can only go up from there, is how I kind of look at it. Um, but yeah, like what's the difference between a trauma response and inner knowing? That's something that I'd like to touch on, because I know throughout my experiences, when I can look back now after so much healing has been done, where I definitely led with my trauma rather than an inner knowing. And I kind of really like that comparison of hypervigilance versus intuition. How does that kind of show up for you, ladies? What's your kind of take on this conversation today?
Well, I think what you just said is a normal response for the majority of humans, right? Hypervigilance and intuition are two signals with inside of our body. It's a body response, or the brain trying to get us to protect or put ourselves in a safe place, right? But hypervigilance is that body bracing for what already happened. It's that
Mm.
echo of that trauma that you already been through. And then the other is your intuition, which is the truth. So when you're reacting in a hypervigilance space, you're actually reacting to a fear-based emotion that you associated to a specific event.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was
Yep,
trying
I
to
agree
give the
with
pause that
Tina.
I can't. Okay, I thought she was gonna say something, but she's.
I got into the chime of the clock in the background and I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then just lost it. Um,
It's my
but no,
mom.
I agree with Tina. I think a lot of um, like the hypervigilance is just like your body's natural way of reacting to things that are similar to trauma that you've had in the past. And those situations kind of bring on that fear or that anxiety or those feelings that you had then, and so you're reacting the same way that you did maybe as in protection mode, that you did in those situations.
Oh yeah, perfect example. Like mine as well, right? Like popping in this morning. Like say, I had an instance this morning that could have been low key minor, but maybe because of the way that in which it was handled, I kind of just might have responded in a hyper vigilant kind of a way, where it was just kind of like meh, 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 because of previous response. So even as we're talking, guys, that's why I love having these conversations, right? Because these conversations are so relatable. And examples are so easy to come by because intuitively the response could have been, well, maybe there's just like an overwhelm in the other person because there's so many things going on in their plate that I just was kind of an easy kind of, person to kind of reflect it towards and see it for that rather than maybe getting so spicy on being a part of that situation. which is where I feel like, we can sometimes turn into toddler mode. You know what I mean? Like, because if you think about hypervigilance, if you really want to expand on it more, it could be relatable to when we're younger and we have not necessarily that awareness or that emotional capacity, to where we can be more reactive than responsive, more
Mhm.
like quick to temper rather than ease, if you will. And that kind of, and it's very easy to fall into these things. So there's no amount of healing that one can necessarily do that is going to completely ward off not having those maybe experiences again.
Yeah. So I think, again, I'm trying to tie back to some of the topics we've talked about in the last couple of weeks. And I think once you're able to tell the difference between hypervigilance and your intuition, it allows you to become much more skilled in your emotional intelligence, your psychological safety, and that spiritual discernment. Right? It's teaching you something. Um, but what's important is that you're staying focused on that lesson, because hypervigilance is, there's no rehearsal for anxiety, right? It hits you and it hits you fast. You're constant, if you're in a hypervigilance nervous system space, you are scanning your environment, you're predicting what's going to happen, you're preparing for that next shoe to drop, you're rehearsing versus just being in a calm state. And that's where I think it's so important for people to understand that trauma based emotions can be controlled if you have the proper tools and understanding that you're in fight or flight mode right now. Just take a deep breath. like
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
what is so urgent right now? What are you feeling that you have to take care of that may not even get solved today? And is it even a problem yet? And is it even going to become a problem? That's where I think people get stuck.
Mhm.
Almost like the what if
Going to
scenarios kind
thinking
of
of
thing.
that, well, even thinking of, is this going to matter in 5 minutes? Is
That's
this
right.
going to matter in 5 hours, 5 days? Is, what is this going to matter? Is it worth my energy right now to be feeling the way that I'm feeling?
Yeah, and it's not wrong. I mean, your body's not doing anything wrong to you. It's putting you in that protective mode.
Mhm.
But it's not, it's blocking your ability to use your intuitive wisdom, right? Like it's your body going into a state of remembrance. I remember the last time this has
Mhm.
happened, X, Y, and Z happened, and it was a domino effect, and I prepared myself for it. The event might happen and it doesn't have a domino effect. So I've already stressed myself out over something that didn't even occur.
Yeah, that's fair to say for sure. Cause but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things that like when it starts to happen, it's very easy to kind of jump
Of
into,
course it
oh,
is.
this is gonna take a whole fucking thing again, kind of a
Mhm.
shit show. But in reality, yeah, it's true because as and the more that you evolve to through these experiences and understanding them, even if you have your moment, because we're all human, I think a lot of hypervigilance at this stage for me, if it pops up, just from own personal experience, would be if there's a cluster of a lot of things happening at one time, like an accumulation of like little things. Like, say, maybe we're late to running somewhere and I'm trying to get the coffee on, and I gotta go to the bathroom, and then I forgot my keys in the house. Do you see what I'm saying? Like these little micro
Mhm.
little irritants that compiled at one time could end up easily being a scapegoat for stepping into that kind of hypervigilance, right? That easy to anger or stress or start to, because we're compiling rather than just taking a beat like you were mentioning and taking it one brick at a time.
Well, so to that scenario, I'm glad you said that because I'm thinking bigger, right? My picture on this is like my experience has always been that it's a bigger event. It's a life changing event. But I guess if we break it down to what you just said, Nicole, where it's morning, you're rushing, you're running late, maybe you're trying to get lunches ready for like younger kids, like you have to stop and get gas, you didn't realize you had no gas. Like those are the moments where I think getting grounded and taking those deep breaths and just reminding yourself you're one person and there's not going to be a catastrophic event if I'm late to work today. I'm just going to be late, right? I just got to face that consequence and understand it's going to be okay. So learning that grounding space in real time, I guess, would be really key in that kind of an immediate situation versus the one where you're just working yourself up to my whole world's going to blow up in 6 months.
And I totally understand that. Like with work, I'll be working on something and then you just got email after email after email and people chatting and this and that. And all these things are urgent issues. And it's like, you're just want to scream, and in the past, I've just kind of, okay, step back, take a deep breath. What do I need to work on right now? Okay, you're going to have to wait. I'll get to you. I've got it. Type of thing. Now, being out here at the camper, I just step outside and I'm like, oh, deep breath, listen to the noises, and then come back in, and I can one thing at a time, just one thing at a time.
Right.
My God, being in the woods is the best. Just saying. What's that saying they say? I came to the woods to lose my mind and free my soul.
Oh,
you ever hear that saying?
Never heard that.
I read it in a couple of when we would go hiking. I remember the first time I seen it, somebody had wrote it. It was on a sign or something. And I was like, I really like that because it goes right back to what we're talking about, right? Hypervigilance and intuition. Because when we're getting caught up in our mind, survival, what's going to happen, what's going to unfold, we're not able to hear and tune in to our soul, our intuition.
It doesn't allow you to because the noise of that hypervigilance is so loud. It's gripping. It has this demanding feeling that you have Tina, you have to take care of this right now. No, I don't. Maybe there's certain situations where you do, but every day is not going to be a fucking fire drill. Sorry for the F-bomb, but that's where people need to get more comfortable with understanding that boundaries are key. They're key to keep you in a place where you feel safe, you feel grounded, you feel like you can, you're capable of responding in a proper way. Versus that fight or flight mode where people actually take offense. They feed off your energy, and the next thing you know, you're arguing with someone, and you don't even know what the hell you're arguing about.
Yep.
It's terrible.
Feeding off energy makes me think. So I know for myself in the past, I've been hyper vigilant about other things happening to other people.
Yep.
Like somebody's going through something that I've gone through, and it brings that right back up. And it's like, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this. This is going to happen. And I've had to pull myself away. It's like, okay, this was my situation. This is theirs. It's completely different. And yourself being pulled in that way too around other people.
Yeah. Stephanie, you're spot on. So a couple weeks I was sharing with Nicole that a friend of mine from years ago, we haven't spoken in over maybe 5 years. She's out of state, and she was very upset the way she found out that my father had passed, but she hadn't been part of my life in a while. So she wasn't somebody that I was going to pick up in the phone and just call, right? The signals that I was receiving at that time was we were not that friendship.
Right.
So her mother passed, and I reached out. I just said, I'm sorry to hear. I knew her mother, loved her. She was great. But the text messages were coming in nonstop. And I was like, I gotta shut this shit down. This is like, I can talk about grief and listen to people, but my story is different than yours. And you and I have not spoken in 5 years. I don't even know what your life looks like today. I don't even know why your mother died. Like, I don't know if she was sick. So I just had to keep those boundaries in place and say, you know what, Tina, you be there for what you understand, but you don't give advice or you don't talk through it like this is how you should handle it, because everybody's situation is very different. But
So you got more in observation
Right.
mode.
yeah, yeah. But 2 years ago, I would have been writing a book.
Yeah.
And I think with when we step more out of hypervigilance, I think we, even if it comes up real quick, I think definitely through the healing, and on everybody's journey, there is a state of kind of stepping back and even if you fall into it for a minute, stepping back into observation mode and being like, what is this scenario really like right now? What's really going on here? Because again, our mind is meant to remember patterns and to be prepared.
Yeah.
Um, and it's always good to kind of, and I've learned this through therapy, and it's been very life saving for me, life altering for me, of really being able to have a plan for any scenario, not what ifs and trying to get stuck there, but like, say you're going into a family situation, and usually in these family situations you can tend to be a target for somebody, right? So if you know that you're going into that dynamic, you can change. You have a couple choices, right? You could say, you know what, I'd be best suited to not go into this situation, and maybe if we're celebrating somebody, do it separate, because I know when I'm in this situation it takes off from, the person that it should be about. Or going into that scenario and having a plan of, maybe not interacting, or if a conversation's to come up, maybe having a boundary of where you'll leave, stuff like that. Having those kinds of plans, um, for me, have been quite helpful, because then I feel like I have been better equipped to stay out of hypervigilance kinds of moments, because I'm like, okay, I foresee this. I had foreseen this coming, and I have this said tool. And in fact, I use that exact tool. Like my tool was, if things got ramped up from my own personal experience and that I had, that I was going to walk away, and that's what I did. Had it been a couple of years ago, I would have been over explaining, no, this is not what this looks like. This means this. I'm coming from here and come from there. But I think you get to a place in your healing journey where you have no more fucks to give. Like, you've seen who I am for the 10 years that you've known me. I've shown up consistently. Even if I had my own issues going on, I still, you know who I am as a person. I'm no longer going to explain that to you. And I think that's where your intuition really starts to take the front lead, because loyalty, I'm not going to self sacrifice who I am to be loyal to you any longer. And I think that shift, because there's light and shadow and everything, right? And even when it comes to, if you want to talk about hypervigilance, the light part of it could be that you have more of an increased self awareness, very similar on what we're talking about. That's a light part of it. But the shadow of it can be where, the fear comes in, where we're automatically assuming this is going to be worst case scenario, like Tina, like you were sharing earlier, or even Stephanie, like you were saying, okay, this experience, oh, it looks familiar, and I had this myself. I'm not going to go put this on her because this may be, or him, or what have you. This situation may be different. So the growth that can really come from it is like the trust that you're building, I believe, within yourself. It's slow, it's micro, it's gradual. But had I taken 2 years ago and took today, I needed that time in between to slowly get to this point of trust. It doesn't just happen overnight, I guess, is really where it stems from. So if you guys are feeling that you're living in this state of hypervigilance or survival mode, just doing daily little changes, little micro changes, like maybe something you might have been reactful to before, this time you don't. You just sit back and you kind of observe it. Little micro.
Is so I like that. And it's just made me think a little bit. So if hypervigilance is being driven by fear and intuition comes from truth, and I just had a really good thing in my head.
Use the comment box to note down.
Hypervigilance says protect yourself. It screams warning, right? Red flag, don't do it, danger, danger. Where intuition is much more calming and just says pay attention. Like, so going into any kind of a situation now, like I've noticed myself, if I go out and there's going to be a crowd there, and I know it's going to be a diverse crowd of I like and I don't like, and you could go sit over there and I'll go sit over here. I walk into that room much more aware of what my intuition is telling me now versus what my anxiety would have told me a year ago. So I walk in and then I still do some of those hypervigilance actions where I like scan the room and I pay attention to the vibe, but I also pay attention to where that good vibe is. And that's where I center myself. I center myself in a room where I feel safe. And then I take baby steps to make my way over to the groups in which you still have to acknowledge because they're either family or friends and you're not just going to totally ignore them. But I can now go up and acknowledge in a calm state. And it's not a fake acknowledge. It's acknowledging them where I'm at in my own emotional journey.
And taking them from where they're at too, in a way. Like just knowing like this is the situation that they not the situation that they are, but this is the person that I'm dealing with. But this is where I'm at. I like how you friggin' said because I got a visual of like going into this big room, navigating towards your people, your comfort, feel like almost like getting that like before you go out into a big game, that hustle, like that amp up, like you got this, we got you kind of a vibe. And then turning because that was very real for me on Sunday. To be honest with you, like I had my people that I felt good about, they were by me, and then I had the people that were walking in that already had preconceived notions of how they were going to handle the situation towards me. But instead, I noticed though, I was very calm. I stayed very centered. I called it out for what it was. And I got very big. And I don't know if this is something you guys can relate to or not, but I noticed that for me in those situations, the eye contact because I think for me, what would happen is if I would have made more eye contact with these said individuals, I think I would have been more apt to fall into the woe is me or trying to like people please or coddle the situation. That I think staying very focused and centered by not ended up helping that boundary a little more. So again, it's going to be different from person to person how you kind of show up and handle these situations, but just know that you're going to be able to get through that day.
Yeah, and I think what has helped me in those situations, and I'm trying to think of the most recent one, but I'll just use Auntie Anna's funeral. We were at a restaurant. A lot of people I haven't seen in a while. A lot of people never went to see her. A lot of people on that list of why are you here? You never showed up before. But it was more about me getting grounded in that anxiety and hypervigilance state wants certainty. It wants to walk away feeling 100% that I'm right, that I made a mistake and I need to eat crow or, what have you, versus the intuition where I already know. I already know how it's going to play out. And I just need to focus on what that looks like. And sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to a half hour to get to that other side of the room. It's not something I take lightly. It's like I scan that and I pay attention to the behaviors, and who's been drinking and like, all right, so I know X, Y, and Z. Like we know this cousin over here loves to drink. and he's very loud right now, so I am not going to go up to him.
Right.
I am not going to say anything, but maybe I'll wave. And then I just remember at the end when I'm leaving to go up and acknowledge his presence and say it was nice to see you and leave. There's no other conversation. I was in control of how we were going to interact and react. And then that's the escape route.
Yeah. I've always heard the saying that I always liked was it's always easier to go up and say hi to somebody than it is to ignore them. Because when you ignore them, you create such a dynamic in your head, situations in your head of what ifs that you end up kind of like ruining your own time because
Well,
you're so caught up in, oh, are they saying this? Oh, they're ignoring me here. So I like how you, even if it's just like a quick
it's a
acknowledgement,
quick acknowledgement.
it
So
softens.
so the other thing is what I've learned, Nicole, is if you don't acknowledge, man, do you become that conversation like, oh, what was up Tina's
Yes.
ass that day? Like, what? She didn't even come over and say hi. I didn't know it. It's like
Giving
you
them
so
fuel.
you got to shut it down, right? But I'm also not going to exert my energy in a conversation at a table with a bunch of drunk relatives who all have an opinion of something, and
That they may not
quite
even
frankly
remember
haven't
tomorrow.
even seen each other in 20 years. So, like, I don't. I'm just going to go with my peeps.
You're seeing the show horses for what they are. The people who like to just step in to make it look like they've always been there at particular times where there's an audience watching.
Well, and it was funny because I had the pleasure of doing the eulogy for Aunt Deanna, and the first thing out of my mouth is, good morning and thank you for being here. And I am so surprised to see so many people.
That we're not here at all for a long time. And that's your no fucks given card that you have now that you put on the table.
Yeah. And then it turned into a good memorial of explaining my memories of her over the last couple of years because I was able to spend a lot of time with her
Mhm.
and really connecting the dots. But it became a eulogy is about the individual that passed. It's not about the person reading the eulogy. I was able to make the connections of the relationship that Auntie Anna and I had as she spent her 5 years in the nursing home or 4 years. But I was also able to connect the people that would not show up, or you'd find them at the reception desk asking where her room is, and you just laugh. I used to like duck and hide and be like, "Oh, this is going to be fun. Let me see if they can figure it out." But it's amazing how people just come out at a time in which they know it'll be noticeable that their presence was there or not there.
Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah. I could so feel that because but at the same time, it's almost like at this point you would be, who are you trying to show for? You know what I'm saying? Like in all reality, like let's cut the shit
Right.
here, kind of, is how I kind of like look at it. And for us, like an example, we wanted to go to an event and had the experience, but every time we seem to go to these events to try to celebrate this said one person, there's people around that thrive on making it about them to create drama to take it off of the person that it's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that this is very warranted and relatable because I'm sure you had that experience very well. But it's almost like, come on, like, why can't this person just have their time? And
Well,
whatever you're feeling, you keep for later.
right. So apparently so that day the eulogy was done first. I've never been to a funeral where the eulogy is given first. So I'm walking in, I just about sat down and I'm being told to come back up to the altar. And I was like, all right, this is weird. So I do my eulogy, but then we're at the dinner and one of my most obnoxious family members stands up and says, I just want to get everybody's attention. He's banging the glass. And I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? And he was like, I just, I feel like I can't let today go without having some kind of kind words about Auntie Anna. We usually do that in a eulogy, and I'm like, I'm sitting like at a table diagonally across, and I'm like, what the fuck is he about to say? So he does this thing, and me and my mouth had just said, just sit the fuck down. You haven't seen her in how 10, 15 years.
Hmm.
And by the way, a eulogy was done. Where were you?
Just like the last 15 years.
Where were you? You were late to the church because that's respectful.
Like, how do you show up late to stuff like that? Like, I feel like you're making a point that, I got here. And that's what you should appreciate. And that's where I feel like some people fall into that narcissism realm, whether they know it or not. Of like,
Hmm.
you guys should be proud that I'm here.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
go fuck on somewhere. I could care less if you're fucking here or not. You know what I mean? Again, it's like some of these people are just like so stuck in all their own drama of bullshit that they really think you're the idiot for not seeing what a prize they are. Like, what the fuck is going on? And that's the craziest part because those are the people that lack that self awareness, a lot of that self-awareness, because they're so ingrained in having to put it on other people as the fault that they get, I feel like it compiles so much that they get to a point of age where it's like there's too much shit buried here and I don't
It's
got the strength to even dig it up. So now I'm going
yeah.
to just start throwing the dirt on myself because they eventually start burying themselves.
Yeah. They do. And it's unfortunate. And you know, one more note on that whole hypervigilance and the fear-based anxiety is, you're living off of a memory when you're in hypervigilance. You have that memory of a specific event where your intuition in this sense is really signaling a message. So you choose, do I want to go back to that memory that made me really upset, sad, and in a bad place? Or do I want to lean into my intuition and figure out what message I'm trying to be sent? Like, you choose your battle. Leaning into your intuition's probably a little easier
Hmm.
than going back to the memory where you've got to fight off all of these feelings that you had at that moment in time.
Yeah, not everything's got to be a war.
Sometimes.
Right.
Right. And
Would
then
you say so?
sometimes the battle's got to get won.
Yeah,
Okay. Sometimes it's very easy to fall back into those.
it's too easy.
I found in like current, still in my spiritual journey and everything that I'm trying to do with my life, I find it sometimes very easy to fall back into those situations, into those feelings and those actions. But I'm also finding it um, easier to pull myself back and not react. So,
Hmm. Well,
And what are
because
we reacting to?
right.
You know what I mean? A lot of times we're reacting to, I think, a behavior that just for so long we just get sick of. And it just kind of like, oh my
yep.
God, like enough's enough. But however, though, also be mindful and giving yourself grace. Like Tina always says, that how fresh is this wound that you're healing? Does it need
Hmm.
more time to heal before you put yourself in that room again? Around what created that wound in the first place. For me, I needed to step back because my wound was so fresh, though I was acknowledging of and I could see that it needed healing. I'll say with my aunt that I ended up going no contact with a couple years ago, I every time I would hear anything about her or she would reach out or whatever, I would immediately get anxiety in my chest, get tense, start hearing all these negative survival hypervigilant kind of situation was happening. And my therapist told me, how much time do you need? And I'm like, what do you mean by that? How much time do you need away from this person completely to really not feel that so much. And I was like, I don't know, 30 days. We started with 30 days. I now got 2 years in. And now every time that I hear her name or I hear situations, I no longer get that little child me of what is going to happen. What do I got to be worried about that's going to happen? Because I now realize that, and a lot of this too, guys, think about it this way: it's not about you in these scenarios, because though I took myself out of this situation with that person, she's still the same person. She's still being the same person to everybody she comes around. And I think a lot of the times we hold on to these traumas and these wounds because we try to think, how was it me? What could I have done differently
Mhm.
so this person could have showed up differently towards me? And when we can step back and really give some healing time for ourselves, can we only begin to see that for what it is and then start to empower ourselves moving forward on, it wasn't me. There is nothing I could have done differently at that time of that experience. But now there is. And that's the freedom and the power of choice when things now become conscious in our awareness rather than unconsciously driving us back into these scenarios.
And
Make
I
sense?
wonder how much of your healing kind of sped up when you started becoming more open, specifically to some of us, like not with the stories we didn't know, um, because you were giving her a lot of energy by allowing it to stay just between you and her.
Ooh,
Now, now that it's out there, you're being heard and you're being seen. So your nervous system is calming down, and those natural um, reactions shouldn't. They may still be there in a more quieter mode, but I think you might be experiencing, Nicole, and I am not speaking for you, but you might be experiencing a level of energy that's turned down because your truth is being heard.
wow. That's powerful as hell. Yeah, I didn't even think about it like that, but you're right, because the dynamics, and I think everybody can relate to their own lives, like the dynamics were so privately done, so quietly done. So when they were done, were acted like they weren't done, if that makes sense. So for me, it did create a lot of, I went many years where I was like, everybody's story or situation that they're in, I'm going to hear them. I'm going to put truth to their power and this and the other. But what happened was, is I was cycling because I was trying to be something for somebody instead of being something for myself, which was, yeah, you're right. Kind of like, because I felt like a lot of times when I would share my experiences, it fell on deaf ears,
Yep.
or it was, oh, that's not anything, until one day what really started clicking was, I don't know if it was my husband, I know, has done this, and my children. I'm not sure who was the first to do it, but they would more so be like, why? Or like when I would explain a scenario, say a scenario that I had with my sister, because this is what just popped up in my head, of when I was homeless. She was letting us live there, but the way that in which we were living there was, to me, I was just grateful. I was like, you know what, if I got a floor, I got a floor. It's not outside. But then my husband was like, you should have never had to sleep on the floor when there was furniture available. You get what I'm saying? So just an example. Or another person would be like, well, when that experience happened to you, that like it wasn't normal. Do you get what I'm saying? And my brain tried to rationalize all of these experiences to make them okay, until people around me started saying, even you, T, you even said, well, that's not what? Like you, when you would say how some of those would take you, but how I was explaining it was so normalized. I think when we can start talking about it to people and they could start letting us know how normal it's not, then we start feeling more empowered. Like, again, it isn't me, it's the person and how they are showing up. And what
Or
can
their
I do
wounds,
differently to show up?
right? Or their wounds that are
Yes.
still
Leading them.
raw.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Some people would take that and say, well, there's still a level of her showing up for you, allowing you to stay. But then there's that piece. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to throw up at these dinners where Nicole's sharing these stories. And she's like, come on, you didn't know this? And I'm like, well, how would I know? So all these years of resentment that Nicole felt like nobody cared about her was because nobody knew what was going on.
And I had no clue.
Yeah. And you had no clue that nobody knew.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really, it's interesting. And I think it's important for us today just to remember that lessons are lessons. Mm-hmm. We choose to show up how we want to show up. If we're showing up as our true authentic self, then it's going to be a wonderful experience. It might have some bumps in the road. It might be a little bit more difficult because of the situation, but you show up. And when you show up half-ass, that's what happens. Half-ass behaviors.
Yes. Leading with the wound. And some may lead with their wound forever. For me, I didn't want to, because I saw that my wound was starting to become wounds that I was starting to put onto other people.
Yep.
And that's an interesting realization, even as we're talking about it right now. And that cycle was no bueno for me. No bueno. Stephanie, you know what this sounds like?
Yeah.
A great moment for Stephanie is purposeful pause.
Always a great moment for pausing.
Mm-hmm.
So, hypervigilance and intuition can feel almost identical in the body. Both are alert, both are insistent, both rise up quickly and ask for your attention, but they come from very different places. Hypervigilance control it, don't let anything slip. Intuition invites awareness. Slow down, take a breath. Something matters here. And sometimes the only way to tell the difference is to pause long enough to ask a different kind of question. What if your body isn't malfunctioning? What if it's asking to be listened to instead of fixed? Because the tightness, the tension, the scanning for danger, Tina, when you walk into a room, I do the same thing. They're not random glitches, they're signals. They're the nervous system remembering what it had to survive. They're the body trying to communicate you to fix it right now. Nope, that was wrong. They're the body trying to communicate in the only language it learned at the time. I moved my note and press thread. Hypervigilance says, something is wrong and it's on you to fix it now. Intuition says something's meaningful. Slow down. Let's figure out what it is. Feel it. Exactly. And in the small space between the two, in that breath where you stop trying to manage yourself and start trying to understand yourself, something shifts. The body stops being your enemy. It becomes the historian, the witness, and the messenger. So let this moment be a soft turning toward yourself, not to solve, not to correct, but to hear. To consider that your body might not be overreacting, it might be communicating. That it might not be asking for control, it might be asking for connection. That listening, not fixing, might be the first act of safety that you've offered yourself in a long time. So yeah, I think that
it's a great pause.
The like the pausing is such a big difference between the two, and figuring out why you're having that feeling in that moment. And maybe it's just me needing to learn that I don't have to act, I don't have to react the way that I always have.
Or is it even yours to react to?
True, exactly.
Freaking mic was off. Now, I agree with you completely. And if you think about the word hypervigilance, think about hyping up a person. hyper. That's a lot of energy. That's fast
Mhm.
moving. So think about in that moment when we're doing fast movement, why are we usually doing it? Because we think there's a fire. We think there's something alarming and that we have to immediately respond to. So even breaking down the word in its essence to really understand. And then when you hear the word intuition, how it just intuitive, internal, right? Insightful. It's more softer, it's more calm, it's less reactful. Um, and with intuition, it's more about what is this moment trying to show me rather than how am I going to get this situation to stop right now? Because in reality, I think a lot of the
Mhm.
times when we step into that hypervigilance, it's because we're alarming ourselves to try to get to stop as quickly as possible that we're not gaining the message and the opportunity that's right under the surface.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's a play on words.
Yeah, yeah, really. When she did that, I was like, is this Tina's reflection time? Like the way that you paused and said, yup. I was like,
What did I do?
the way your face just went because you were looking off and you went, yup. And then I was like, it just made me feel like I was like, is this a moment for Tina's reflection time?
Yeah,
Because you look
Tina's
like you're someone
reflecting.
with a thought.
Yeah, Tina's reflecting and also pausing to make sure she doesn't throw her computer at the wall because these
Working
alerts
that well.
keep
Yeah, we
popping
still
up
get
and I
that
have
pop
no
up.
control over them.
Ah, that's frustrating.
Mhm.
Well, take a moment to pause. Okay, well, with this, we will do Tina's reflection time.
Yeah, can't
More a
start.
little
Yeah,
detailed than the computer being thrown.
can't start that without that intro. So
I can.
okay. So I think a great way to close out today's conversation and summary of what we've been talking about. It's a bit it's a bit lengthy, but I'll read as quickly as possible. There is a part of you that learned to scan the world for danger because at one point it had to. That part is not broken. It is not dramatic. It is not too much. It's a loyal witness to everything you've survived. Hypervigilance is the echo of the moments when you didn't feel safe. It's your body saying, I remember. And remembering is not a flaw, it's a form of intelligence. But there is another voice within you, a quieter one, a wiser one, a voice that doesn't rise from fear, but from alignment. Intuition is the part of you that has never been harmed. It's the part that remains whole, even when life has been anything but. It is the compass beneath the chaos and the knowing beneath the noise. And your work, there we go again. And your work, your sacred ongoing work, is not to silence one voice and amplify the other. It's to learn the texture of each, to recognize which one is speaking, to honor both without letting fear lead your life. So as you move through this week, I invite you to practice a simple noticing. When something inside you tightens, pause and ask, is this a memory or a message? And when something inside you whispers, pause and ask, is this fear or truth? When something inside you urges you to act quickly, pause and ask, is this protection or guidance? You don't have to get it perfect. You don't have to know instantly. Discernment is a muscle, one that strengthens through curiosity and not pressure. Let this moment, let this be the moment you stop shaming yourself. Both are part of your story, but only one is meant to lead you forward. Feel the difference between contraction and clarity. Trust that with every pause, every question, every moment of presence, you are coming home to the truest voice within you.
Girl, you need to make a post out of the section where you were talking about memory or message, truth, or that section right there, especially
Mhm.
for your purposeful transitions, which also that is Tina's business. Feel free to check out her website at what is it, purposefultransitions.com?
.net.
.net .net. So check that out because it's got some great nuggets on there. And you could always get into some coaching with her to help you through. But navigating your life experiences, grief, whatever it looks like, Tina's your gal. I had to do that moment because when I'm freaking hearing you say these things, I'm literally seeing like how powerful that is. Like, even for me, hearing that, these recordings are like therapy sessions for me. And I appreciate having this space with you ladies because real time stuff happens when we're recording these things. But it's great, though, again, in a reminder of how having community, people that you can conversate with, open up to about your experiences, may be all the difference in how you respond versus react, how you are showing up for yourself as rather than from survival. So yeah, I appreciate that reflection. That was great. And appreciate this conversation today. I thought it was really, really a good way to. We started Monday where we were talking about survival mode, and then today we got into hypervigilance versus intuition, and then we'll be back here on Friday to talk about the pressure to have life figured out. And I'm sure that's something that we can all relate to at different times in our lives, at different spaces, whether it be work related, familiar related, relational related, living. And So we'll come back Friday and have that conversation as we close out our week. But in closing out the conversation today, as I always say, beautiful souls, you guys woke up today because we need you. The collective needs you, the planet needs you. So please show up as authentically true to you as you can, because that is the purpose of why we are here on this planet. Not to be like everybody else, but to show up uniquely designed as we were supposed to be. If this conversation resonates with you, feel free to comment down below, follow, like, share. Always trying to create a community of unity, whether this reaches one person or only helps us in the when we're recording today, it's still worth the conversation. So I hope that you walk on today living more from a place of pausing, intuition, and peace rather than survival, hypervigilance, or reactive. So, love and light, beautiful souls. We'll see you later.
Love and light.
See you Friday.
Bye, bitches.